Alrighty, this is Michael with Rock Legends Photographers at the world famous King Center in Melbourne, Florida. And speaking of Rock Legends, we're here with Butch Trucks from the Allman Brothers, currently with his own band called Freight Train. And he has another great band that you should not miss called Les Brers.
Yes, he does. And he's a legend in his own mind.
Well, thank you for taking the time with us. You have been a professional musician for right around 50 years.
Yes, that's about right.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess the first band that I got involved with was The Bitter End. It was me and David Brown and Scott Boyer. Remember Scott Boyer from Cowboy?
Yeah.
He wrote Please Be With Me, and Please Be With Me is enough. Clapton recorded it, and Bonnie Bramlett, and Galadriel used it for a title for the book she wrote about Duane. But anyway, Scott and David and I went to high school together in Jacksonville, Florida, where we hated each other. Me and David Brown were in competing teenage rock and roll bands. He was in Tiny and the Surfers, and I was in the Vikings. So, but he played saxophone then.
What year was that? Do you remember?
Oh, I graduated high school in 1965.
So this would have been over 50 years ago.
This has been 64. My parents moved me across down in the 12th grade. In the 11th grade, I was like president, captain of everything. I was a real BMOC at a high school called Ribault High School in Jacksonville. And then I had this girlfriend that I would take to the drive-in every Friday night. And my little sister heard my girlfriend telling somebody at a party that we were going to get married. So my parents decided to move across town to get me away from her.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
So I had my own car. I'd playing in a band, and then one of the first things I did was buy this '58 Ford. And I was ready to break up with the girl, but just because they moved across town pissed me off so bad, I drove all the way across town and kept going to see her. And but anyway,
wow.
So I wound up at this alien high school where everybody hated me and I hated them. So
did you know the Van Zants and all the other Jacksonville people that were kind of starting around that time? No? Okay.
Now, I know that when we first started with the Allman Brothers, we'd play around Jacksonville, and they had this band, I think, called 2%, something like that. I think some of them. I'm not sure if it was all of them, but they used to come around to see us, but I'm not sure if I ever met them or not. I've got this thing that I can never remember a name, but I can always forget a face.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
it's bad in my business.
In your 50 plus years of touring, what's your favorite venue to play in and why?
I guess the Filmore East had to be right at the top. Because that's probably the greatest night, was the night before the closing of the Filmore. We played till like 7 or 8 in the morning.
Wow.
Well, you've heard Bill Graham the closing night when he introduced us.
Yes.
Because Bill Graham never talked about a band, ever. At the Filmore West, Filmore East, it didn't matter. He just walked out and said, Allman Brothers, and he'd walk off.
Yeah.
But that night, he said, tonight I'm going to, do something I don't normally do. But last night, it was something like, I just saw one of the greatest things ever. And, they started at 1 o'clock in the morning and finished at 7:30 this morning. And it was the greatest music I've ever heard played. The best contemporary music. That's what he used. The best contemporary music around today. So now we're going to end with the best of them all, the Allman Brothers. I mean, it's a big, long thing. And it really was that night, the night before. The closing night sucked. Because everybody there was by invitation. They were record company people. And the Beach Boys showed up, dumped all their gear, and their road manager went to Bill Graham and said, well, the Beach Boys are here, but they're going to have to close. And Bill said, well, pack your shit up and get out of here. I got my closing act. And they said, okay, well, we'll go on before them. And so they played till like 3 in the morning. They tried to play a bunch of new music, bored everybody stiff. And after 2 hours of that, then they started playing Surfer Girl and all that stuff, and everybody jumped up and started having fun, so they just kept playing and kept playing. We didn't get on stage till 3 o'clock in the morning, and by then everybody in the audience was just plastered,
Oh, I bet.
drunk. All the booze was free,
Oh, wow.
and you can hear the recording is out. They just put it out the closing night of the Filmore, and that night before when we played like 7 hours straight, and we finished playing. Not one person even did that. Everybody was just sitting there going. And I was in there going. And I remember Duane walking in front of me, dragging his guitar behind him, saying, damn, it's like leaving church. And somebody got up and opened the doors, and the sun came in. And a New York crowd, they just got up and quietly left, you know. And we were outside waiting to get in the car, and people would walk by and say, thank you. You know, quietly. I mean, New York, you know, thank you. And to this day, I meet people that say they were there that night, and I can tell by the way they talk about it, whether they're lying or not. Because I met way too many people for them to all have been there. I met 10,000 people that said they were there, and only 3,000 people fit in that building. So, anyway.
There you go. Well, let me ask you this.
But the Filmore and then the Beacon, you know, because so many great shows there.
Yeah. Now, if your music collection got wiped out, everything you got, what would be the first album you replaced?
Daphne Chloe by Ravel.
Okay.
And specifically Leonard Bernstein's version.
Very good.
Yeah.
So, you played with a lot of people. Who would you like, living or dead, who would you like to jam with that you haven't played with?
Wow, good question. God, I really hadn't thought about that. It's pretty much everybody I want to jam with, I've done it. You know, I can't think of too many people. Maybe John McLaughlin. It'd be fun to, you know, really cut loose with him.
Okay.
I mean, there's some dead people that I would really like to jam with.
Well, they count.
But they're dead.
Yeah, they count.
Huh?
You got the great gig in the sky coming up one day.
I mean, I'd love to play with Charlie Parker, John Coltrane, you know, and add what I play to what they play, you know.
Very good.
I think we could go places that they haven't been and I haven't been, and it might be a lot of fun for both of us.
That'd be a good melting pot.
Yeah.
Okay, singer shows up at your door, and he says, Butch, I'm going to sing one song just for you. Who's the singer? What is the song?
Yeah. You know, those kind of questions are very difficult because it really depends on what mood I'm in, you know. Right now, I'm really blown away by this version of Sound of Silence by this heavy metal group Disturbed. But I definitely wouldn't put it on top of my list. It's just, that's the best thing I've heard in the last decade. I mean, mostly I've just been hearing garbage.
Yeah.
You know, just total garbage. But
that's a living or dead question, by the way. It could be someone that's passed.
It's what?
That's a living or dead question on the singer and the song. It could be somebody that's passed.
Okay. Tim Buckley, Morning Glory. That's a song that really hit me. It's very short. And I actually bought a guitar because I'm doing this roots rock revival thing. And I bought the guitar with the purpose of learning Morning Glory and singing it at Roots Rock Revival. But I just can't make it through without my fingers killing me. And I just haven't put in the time to get my fingers tough enough to play it. Mm-hmm. So I'll do it eventually, but it's a beautiful song. Have you heard it?
I'm not familiar with it, but I'm going to be listening to it.
It's on an album called Goodbye and Hello. Tim Buckley from probably 67, 68.
Okay.
And it's the last song on there. It was something like, I lit my purest candle close to my window, hoping it would catch the eye of any vagabond who passed it by.
That does sound familiar.
And I waited in my fleeting house. And it's just beautiful. And he brings in all these female voices going, it's just a really beautiful voice. Lovely song. Very short, but every time I hear it, it kind of, you know. Oh, no. The song that gets me the most. And it's a great, great song, there's no doubt. And it's, I just talked about it, Scott Boyer, Please Be With Me.
Okay.
Because that's the song. Because Duane played dobro on it. It's the last album that Cowboy did, and the band was falling apart. So there would the vibes around they recorded muscle shoals, and Duane went over and played on it, and he came back and just he didn't think it was any good at all. But after he died, it was probably 2 or 3 weeks, and I still really hadn't accepted the fact that he was dead. I was just barely 22.
Yeah.
It was just too much.
You guys were good friends, right?
Overwhelming to have the most powerful person that I'd ever known. The guy that changed me from being headed toward teaching math in a high school to what I've done. Mm-hmm. If it hadn't been for Duane, that's what I would have done. And he was just such an incredible human being in every way.
Were you good friends?
Every way. But I was listening to that song, Please Be With Me, with Duane playing that beautiful, beautiful dobro on it, and the damn Brers. It finally hit me. He's dead. He's gone.
Yeah.
And I can, to this day, I cannot listen to that song without crying. I can't do it.
In addition to being a great bandmate and everything, I take it you guys were close friends?
You what?
You were close friends with Duane?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Family?
No, he and I had a very special relationship. We were both avid readers. We just loved to read. And nobody else in the band read, or really cared that much about being educated But Duane dropped out of school in the 10th grade, and he was better educated than most college graduates I know. He taught himself algebra. He's just sitting there in school one day, and he said, damn, I'm smarter than these people. I just buy the books. So he bought the algebra book and learned algebra. I read the book. That's all you have to do if you got a brain.
Yeah.
And so he and I used to love to go fishing together. And when I do this, the first year I did Roots Rock Revival, this thing I do in August up in the Catskills, I gave this 2-hour talk called Fishing with Duane. And it was about this relationship that he and I developed, where we would, on a day where we had an afternoon off or maybe a day off, which didn't happen very often, but we'd go fishing. We'd go buy a couple of cheap Zebco reels and some plastic worms and find a lake somewhere and go bass fishing. And we'd sit on the side of the lake and talk for an hour or so. And then we started talking about books, and I was just finished reading Tolkien for about the 3rd time, Lord of the Rings, and I turned him on to that, and his daughter's name is Galadriel, so he liked it.
Yes, he did.
And then he read somewhere that Friedrich Nietzsche said that life without music would be a mistake. He said, anybody would say that, I want to know what else he has to say. So we dove right into Also Sprach Zarathustra, which was Nietzsche's magnum opus. And for a couple of guys who had, I had just graduated high school, and I was one of the few people that figured out how to flunk out of Florida State University. It's hard to do. FSU is a party school.
Yeah.
You got to mess up pretty bad. But if you get in a band and don't go to class, they will ask you not to come back when your GPA hits .8, you know, and mine did. So after 3 trimesters, I flunked out. Now here's the funny thing. In '76, when the Allman Brothers split up, I went back to Florida State because I didn't like having that on my record. Because I graduated high school top of my class and, in National Honor Society, all that kind of stuff, and thought I was a pretty smart guy. And having a .8 from Florida State University, I didn't like. So I went back, and they wouldn't let me in the normal route. So I went to the School of Music, because 1976, we were still the #1 band in the country.
Right.
And we split up. We were the #1 drawing band in the country, and we just walked away from it. And so I went to the percussion teacher at the School of Music and told him who I was, he said, well, come with me. And we went to meet the dean, and it turned out the dean was a big Allman Brothers fan. He said, I think we can work something out. And so they got me in school that way. And FSU had this system where you could retake a course that you did bad in, and they would drop the low grade and keep the high grade. So I took chemistry lab, creative writing, meteorology, all that stuff. In the first trimester, I made 5 A's and a C. You know what the C was in?
No, music.
Percussion.
Isn't that something?
One of the best drummers in the world, and this little shit gives me a C. In the second term, I made 5 A's and a B. Got on the dean's list and turned that .8 into a 3.8. And then I just decided, you know, I need a college degree like I need a hole in the head. So, and this percussion, he was trying to teach me orchestral percussion.
Yeah. But
I played rock and roll percussion. And I just didn't spend any time practicing, and he knew it.
Yeah.
It was a one-on-one subjective grade. I'm lucky he didn't flunk me. But anyway.
There you go. Speaking of...
but I was talking about something else, and that's my style. So you have to keep me on track.
Speaking of Allman Brothers breaking up for a while and getting back together, Greg was recently interviewed, like yesterday or real recently, and said that
I read it.
There was a possible reunion of the Allman Brothers in the next couple of years. What do you think about that?
Well, Greg has sent a text around, you know, saying that we ought to talk about it. I don't know. We'll talk about it, and we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah. It's
We'll
up
just
in,
have
up
to
in
wait
the
and
air.
see.
Up in the air.
Huh?
Up in the air.
Yeah.
One day at a time.
Quite frankly, with what we're doing with the Brers, I'm not sure I really want to walk away from that. You know?
I think you blew away about 30 or 40,000 people.
I blew myself away. That was fun. And I had every intention of playing till the sun came up.
I know you did.
You know why we quit?
You had to.
Oteil's back went out. No, they didn't tell us to quit. Oteil's back went out. He couldn't stand up. We were going to come out and do an hour, 2 hour long mountain jam. And if we could do it, we were going to stretch it till the sun came up.
Wow.
I mean, we literally walked on that stage with every intention of creating a new legend. And we got about halfway there. So.
Oh, you created a legend, all right. There was...
Yeah.
You know,
that's a good band.
It sure is. I think, and I'm almost quoting you on this, that I heard something that you said that was the most fun jamming you've had since Duane passed away.
It was.
Yeah.
It was, because it was so loose. It was so loose. Because, you know, I loved playing with Warren and Derek, but they tended to be too worried about making mistakes. You know?
You can't do that live.
And that, you know, back before Duane died, that was our whole thing. You just dive off the cliff and see where you land, you know? If you land flat on your face, you get up and just take off in another direction. Or more often than not, we would just take off and soar and wind up going someplace we've never been before. And that's the way you do it. And if you're afraid to get adventuresome, if you get too careful, I mean, Derek, I think, is one of the, without a doubt, has the best chops and one of the greatest guitar players out there. But I think somewhere along the way, he kind of, when he first got in the band, that's one of the things I used to say about him, is I never knew what he was going to do next. But by the time he left the band, I knew exactly what he was going to do. Yep. It was great. It was incredible stuff. But it kind of lost that sense of, you know, taking a chance and diving off the cliff. But Jack Pearson, bro, I mean, we were practicing. You know, he's up there saying it. I say, man, you didn't play like that last time. He said, yeah, and I won't play that way next time. That's what I want to hear.
Exactly. I think that's what the fans want to hear, too. If they see two shows back to back, they don't want to hear it exactly the same again. They want to feel the jam.
Yeah.
Yep. New drummer wants to break into a career in being a rock and roll drummer. What advice would you have for him?
Wow, be a dentist. It's tough out there these days. I mean, geez. After all I've done, I mean, you look at what we're doing here. I'm paying for 200 people tonight, maybe. And I mean, we just finished doing 7 in a row, these little clubs around the Southeast. It's tough. It's really tough. And the old days, I mean, it's completely new way of doing things. You don't make records anymore. At least if you make them, don't expect to make any money because everybody just steals them. The internet has basically torn the music business apart.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, with all the streaming that's going on, I'm really nervous about live music.
Well, I think
everybody's going to start streaming all these concerts, and it's getting better and better and better. If you recall, I started doing that with Mugas 7 or 8 years ago. The technology wasn't quite there yet, so we couldn't quite get that off the ground. But I did 3 or 4 years of the Allman Brothers at the Beacon Theater every night. Yeah. Now, the good news is, because of that, we've got 3 or 4 years, 2008, 2009, 2010, all on high definition and all ready to be released. That 40th that we put out on DVD, that was because I did that, because I did Mugas. And I also have 2 years of Wanting. Everybody that played at Wanting, except the Black Keys. Fuck them. They wouldn't let me record them.
I read a couple articles recently, that's like a year ago, and they were talking about the same thing you're talking about with the live streaming and stuff like that. But there is a certain percentage of the fans that want to feel the music, and you just can't.
I know that.
You can't do that watching.
But we need more than a certain percentage.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it has to.
We go to the Allman Brothers, get back together. I want to do 12, 14 nights at the Beacon, not 7. You know, it's hard to even make a living only doing 7.
Right.
Because the union charges in New York are so expensive. You've got to do a whole bunch of shows to walk out of there with anything in your pocket.
I'll bet.
And so, I mean, it's like I say, if they're going to steal all our music that we record, at least show up for the damn concerts.
Right.
Don't just sit at home and watch them.
That makes sense. Last question and the hardest one. What question would you like to answer that no one has ever asked you?
Well, I can't think of the damn thing, because if they don't ask me, I answer them anyway. If I have something to say, if you can tell, I'll say it. I'm not shy. If you don't ask me the question, then I'll steer it in that direction.
You will.
And I'll answer it anyway. But
I just heard that you got on stage in a couple minutes. I want to thank you so much for taking the time with us.
Okay, I got to play.
It is a pleasure to know you and have you as a new friend, and we'll get you a copy of this and have some great pictures, and thank you so much.
I might ask you to cut that last part. I'll see.
Okay.
Let me look at it before you put it online.
Okay.
Thank you. How about Heather, huh? I wish I could play that with like Daryl when I was 21. Except I couldn't play a guitar. Okay, we got a new song that Brers wrote. And once again, he has no title. It's weird how things like that happen. I wound up playing in the band for 45 years and got a name, but we couldn't come up with a name. We were going to call it Beelzebub. I'm not kidding. That was the original name of the Allman Brothers, Beelzebub. Okay, I thought it was funny. But anyway, we're calling this the hippie song.